Okay. Let me ask you some other question now. After design and implementation is correct answer. I'm just going through the slides, whatever we covered, so to see and ask you a good question. Now, when you have business requirements document with you, do you, as a tester, participate and uh, do anything? Do you write requirements? Who writes the requirements?
Business analyst.
That's correct. Business analyst writes the requirements. Now, what is a JAD session? You remember what is a JAD session?
JAD session like RAD, right? Like JAD is under RAD, rapid
Applica-
analysis
Application development.
design
Rapid Application
or
Development
development.
Model, RAD, but JAD is a session. Session means a meeting, group of people coming together, discussing the entire project itself.
All right.
Okay. Now, what
Do
is
I
a
need to
function?
answer?
Go ahead.
Do I need to remember all full forms for JAD, RAD, UAT, like that?
See, this is how it will happen. If you, when you attend an interview, they will ask you one question. The first question they will ask you is, "Tell me about yourself." So, if you put
Okay.
more number of years of experience, you need to support it. So, in order to do that, you need to, let them know that you know all this terminology while explaining that you have attended these sessions and everything. Then, they will have some confidence in you. Uh, if you join as a newcomer in any company, obviously they don't expect you to know all this content, but even if you know this terminology and everything, they will be more interested in hiring you. So main reason is, fundamental concepts are very critical.
Okay.
Okay, now what is the difference between a business requirement and a functional requirement? It's in this document, in this slide here. Business requirements is always about the business. When you go to functional requirement, you will have two or three applications interacting one after another, and everything you talk about function. Go there, log in, sign in, go to your mail account, open a mail, and again compose an email, send it. So these are all functional requirements. So functional will be like that. Business will be about the business only. And in
Okay.
functional, what happens is you will have systems or applications. You will talk about application. In which application, what type of function will you be doing? That is what you have to focus. The requirements are written like that. Okay. If you remember the art viewer, which I have used an example to write our for the requirements, those requirements are business requirements because the company wanted to design an application just like that. So that is business requirement. Now, what technology, where they're going to do that, that will be in a functional requirement document or a system requirement document. They are almost one and the same. If anybody asks you what is a functional requirement, you can explain this. They can ask you what is a functional testing also. Functional testing is also same as system testing. That means you write your test cases and you test it. And when you test it, you write, I'm going to log into Siebel, check the content. For example, hotels.com. What happens in hotels.com? In the front page, you search hotels, buy the hotel. But before doing that, while checking out, if you don't have an account, you have to create your user account. Where do you think that your user information is stored? It's on Siebel. So now we assume that somebody is ready to check out. You go into Siebel, your test case will be like this. You do all the steps, perform all the steps, go to checkout button, click checkout. Then after that, go to Siebel, log into Siebel and check in log in Siebel whether you have all the customer information there or not. That is how the functional testing has to be done or the system testing. Okay. I'm just trying to find some good questions for you. So in this one we had, it's a basic intro class. Now what is the explicit requirement, implicit? Explicit is clearly defined and documented. Implicit requirements are not clearly defined. It's exactly the opposite. Okay. Explicit, just remember this. Explicit means more in detail, explained in detail, defined. Static analysis. Do you remember what is a static analysis? So anything, you just go through the documents without testing anything, by reviewing, by walkthroughs, by code inspection, looking at it, you are identifying if there is any defect or not. That is static analysis. Which is the relevant term closer to static analysis? Which is the same process. It's verification. Okay. Now dynamic analysis is where you actually test the requirements, and it's closer to validation. Okay, go through the content again. Who does integration testing? Can you answer this? Is it a developer, a tester, or a business user?
Developer?
Integration testing is done by tester, not developer.
Oh yeah, test.
Unit testing?
Yeah, after this, after production, right?
No. Unit testing
integration means
integration.
After.
Now
Sorry.
there is a catch here. Okay, the developer, he builds separate units of code. Like think about as a web page of code. Each web page is a code unit, and when you combine all the web pages, it becomes a website, right? So when you test the entire website, who does it? The tester does it, not the developer. Developer will only test page by page. But when you see one page to another page, all the flow is done by a tester.
Right.
Integrated system tester.
Go.
Okay. Now we talked about failure, error, fault, and defect. Can you define what is a defect?
Like error code.
Anything that does not satisfy a requirement is a defect. Anything, and if any malfunction or any requirement, how if we expect application to behave such a way, if it doesn't do that, then it is a defect.
Like forget something, wrong logic, like that, right?
Anything, yes. Okay. Life cycle testing, we talked about this one in the types there. I don't want to go in detail here. Now, what happens if you find a defect in maintenance phase? Will it cost more or will it cost less?
Cost, I think less, right?
Look at the graph here. See, quality is high. That means here in this one we are talking about quality versus cost.
Correct.
But when you have 4 or 5 phases sitting, we have planning, analysis, design, implementation, then maintenance. I'll just put abbreviation here: planning, analysis, design, implementation, maintenance. Now if you find defect here,
yeah,
we have to go with all the steps,
all the process again. Yeah,
so that means you're spending more time,
and money.
Yeah, you calculate by hour, that is a cost that is incurred, by number of people again. Now if you find requirements in planning only, if the requirements are not correct, that's what you found out when you do your static analysis or verification. That means that defect is fixed with the low cost. Okay, as a tester, what you need to do is, the moment you join a project, you get selected in a project, you need to understand the business. If you join a car insurance company, for example, Geico or something like that, so when you do that, you need to understand what is the insurance, how is it created, what are the different entire information and the business related to your project. You can't understand the entire company itself, but whatever related to your project, you need to understand how many systems are there, what is happening. If you think in that direction, obviously you can perform anywhere. It's very easy. After that, it's cakewalk. Technical information, well, if you know business, you are more stronger than if you know technical. There will be many people who will be very good at technical, but business testing is very critical. Okay, that will add value in the long run. Let's see what else we want to check again. Yeah. Now, yeah. Anyway, I didn't cover that one. So day 2 we are good so far. Just go through the content again. It will be good for you. I suggest go read through the slides. It will help you. Okay, we talked about different types of models. Now in waterfall model, does waterfall model has iterations or not?
I didn't get it. Can you please repeat the question?
Does waterfall model has iterations in it or not?
Hydration means?
You forgot already.
Oh my God.
We talked about iterative model. We remember we
So
talked about
iterative. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Iterative, right? Oh, iterative.
So iteration means one round, one circle of all the steps.
No, no, no.
So think about this. You wake up daily. You do all activities right from the time you wake up till the time you sleep in the night. That is every day. It's a cycle for you, daily cycle. It's a
Right.
iteration. Every day you do the same thing similarly, very close. You might do a little differently, but that is your cycle. Same way, every project will have a cycle. That cycle, you have to follow all the steps process. Then only you will have a final product. In waterfall model, what happens? Everything goes in down, from top to down.
Right, like waves, like.
Exactly, it's like
But
waterfall. So everything,
right.
once you finish the first one, then only to second, then only third, like that. In this case, you don't have iterations at all. It's only one direction, one way, no back way. Like if you want to fix anything or you want to modify anything in the requirements, you can't
You
do
have
it.
to go back again.
Yeah, and this takes a long time. 1 year project like that, very long. If you fall in a waterfall project, you will have a lot of time to read through the documentation and go through content and everything. I mean, good luck. I mean, if you fall in a waterfall project, you'll be good. You'll get some time to learn.
Right.
Now, so in iterative phase, let's look at the picture here. Okay, an iterative model here. How many iterations do you think we will complete before we will have a final product?
4.
Good guess. There is no number there.
Uh,
Iterative model, we'll have partial requirements. We don't know when it will be complete. Like,
right, for repetition, everything, right?
yes, if a user come and tell you, okay, build me a website. In that, I want to put only just like hotel booking. That is first one iteration. Then you create the requirements, do the design, then code, test, and do everything. Then after that, you'll check with the customer. Oh, is this what you want? Then he'll say, no, I need something else. Add this, add that, remove that. Then I also need airlines booking. That will be another iteration. Like that, how many number of iterations you will do? It depends on the customer. So there is no number there. Okay, but if there are too many numbers of iterations, what's going to happen? It's going to consume a lot of time and money, but you will have a final product which is exactly like how the customer wants it. Okay, think in a layman terms. Okay, in now V model, V is the shape of that model. So now in V model, in which phase does testers write their test cases? We have requirements analysis here, we have system design here, architecture
Like
design.
Mm.
At which stage do you write test cases if you are in a V model?
Like requirement analysis, and then after the system design, then we do testing, right? Or
That's correct. So after system design, this is where a tester will write his test cases. The moment you have this, business users will write test cases here. They will write acceptance tests here, test cases. While you have, anything module or unit, developers will do that later. We will keep all test cases ready upfront, then we will test it later after when we have the code ready. That's why it's a V shape. It's going down and coming back up. By doing this, we are saving some time going through the testing and thinking about testing before we even have a product. That way, you will have a high quality product. It will reduce the cost in the long run. Okay. Now let's see. In spiral model, you know this. It will go in a spiral model, and here you will have prototypes as well. And how many number of prototypes you don't know until you have a final product as the customer really wants it. Yeah. RAD model we covered. Just looking at what else needs to be. Now agile, this is a critical one. This is very important. Everywhere they will ask you whether you worked in agile environment or not. Now, what is a sprint? Can you explain me? What is a sprint?
sprint means length of time.
That's correct. Length of time. And how many? What will be the lengths of? How many lengths of the a sprint will consist of? Whether it's 2 weeks.
2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it can be 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Or 4 weeks.
Yeah. So if you have a quarterly release, how many sprints do you have?
3.
That's correct. Now, what is a Scrum meeting? Scrum methodology or Scrum meeting is nothing where everyone. Now you don't sit with all the testers together. If you are hired in a team, what's going to happen is generally QA people will sit together, development will sit together, analysts like that. Okay. In a Scrum, what's going to happen? They will give you a table. You will, if you are working on a project, you go and sit at the table, and whoever is working on the project will be around the table. If you have any questions, you can directly ask them and fix it then and there. If developer is coding it, he don't need to go to multiple people to get answers. He will have quick results, and and the product delivery will be pretty quick. That is the advantage of a Scrum meeting. Okay. Now there are different types of agile methodologies. Don't need to learn all of them, but remember these names. They won't ask you. They'll just ask you whether you worked in agile environment or not. Okay. Okay. Let's look at this one in sprint planning meeting. There will be a planning meeting every sprint. Before, if you have 3 week sprint, before starting on Monday we'll have a meeting, sprint meeting. In that, you will have the product owner, Scrum team, all these people here, and you will also have what will we discuss? We'll discuss product backlog. That means whatever we didn't cover in the last sprint will be there. In this week, what are we going to do in this sprint? What are the business, the immediate requirements which has a high priority? Any technology that we need to consider, current product, like that. So we'll look in all these aspects, then prepare a plan for these 3 weeks. Finally, we'll have a final product by the end of that particular sprint. You will have a goal that you'll set up upfront. You'll make sure, okay, let's say you have tasks like if you work somewhere in a for example, you not in IT company but in a retail store or somewhere, what do? You go through multiple steps. You have to stock the inventory in the store. What do? You get the stock from the warehouse, put it on in the store, then put it in the exact location where it's needed. Then finally, you make sure it's refilled on constant basis. Like that, That is, each one is a task there. Everything is a task. Like that, in agile methodology, whatever you do, whatever you try to do on testing, you will break it down into pieces. I'm going to test this particular page. I'm going to test this particular application. Like that, it's all tasks. So if you complete all the tasks, then you're good. If you didn't complete one or two or left out, those two will also come in the next sprint. So every sprint, if you have like 30 tasks, 30 testing tasks you need to complete. Each task can take 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. You don't know, but you know that you will be given that work. Finish this by this time. Anything you don't finish will come on to the next one. That means you have to make sure you still need to work and finish all the tasks. That is the backlog content which moves from one sprint to another sprint. Okay. Yeah, that completes all the models. Let's look at the yesterday's class, which we covered different types of testing. Okay. In this one, the important terminology that we looked at is white box, black box, gray box testing. In that, okay, yeah, we looked at static. So black box, we don't know how the software is built, what kind of technology they have used. We only know what is the application functionality. Like if you know if it's a web page that provides car insurances or if it provides health insurances, we will be testing only whether that particular website is giving us those information or not. Now you go to esurance.com, they give you quotes from multiple companies. So if esurance doesn't get the data correctly from all the health insurance companies and give you that information, you will never even visit the website anymore. But that company does that. It gets from 4 or 5 health insurance companies at one page. So black box, you don't know how it's doing it, but you make sure that it's there. So this is a company, insurance company. You search for any of this insurance. What it does, it goes to all the different companies who provides a auto insurance and get you a rate which is depending on the company. Then it lets you decide what you want to do with that. Okay. Similarly, in our case, we don't know. Black box can be any application. We are only concerned about its functionality. Okay. Now, remember what is equivalence partitioning? Do you want to explain it to me? I'll wait. No problem. Take a couple of minutes.
Like date.
Okay, you're getting closer. So what did I use the
Months.
example there? Yeah, I used months there. Now why did I use months? Look at the picture. If you don't want to read through the content, if you look at the picture, the valid range is 1 to 12 months. This is the valid range from here to here.
Right.
Invalid range starts here on both directions. So equivalence partitioning is you are making sure which is invalid, which is a valid, what do I need to use in valid, what do I need to use in invalid is your test cases. So you will have the same type of test case, but with different
Right. So
types
we
of
know
data.
what is the invalid numbers, right?
Yep. Now looking at other testing methods, boundary value analysis. What is boundary value analysis? You are only looking at the topmost boundary and the bottommost boundary. In the same case, we are looking at 0, 1 on 2 and we are looking at 11, 12, 13. We are not looking any values between 2 and 11. Why? Because we are only concerned about the boundaries. Okay, our test case should be designed such a way like that. So when you have the right test case, what's going to happen is if you use your common sense and your intellect to write a test case such a way that application is failing because they didn't code based on these requirements, that means you have done a very good job. What is a tester's job? It's make sure we test the entire content with different combinations and permutations, and then break the code, break the application. So these are all the different types of
Break the
testing.
application means?
Means it will fail. It will show you, throw you an error.
Okay.
So throwing an error in that way, you are catching it before it when goes to production. In production, what will happen?
Okay, got
You'll
it.
have many number of customers there, hundreds, thousands,
Right.
millions. So it might behave in different directions. You want to catch them upfront. So your testing focus is catch the bug. Now there's all pairs testing. In all pairs testing, did we use an example of simple switch control? In your room, you might have switches on and off. By on and off only, you will have so many combinations. So do you want to test all the combinations? If it is in the requirement, you need to test it. If it's not in the requirement, you do one or two combinations and leave it, right?
Right.
If everything is off there, none of the, there won't be any electricity passed in your room. And if everything is on, that means all the, switchboards, everything will have electricity in it. Like that, your test case should be like that. I'm giving an example, but we'll do the real project, then you'll understand more. Decision tables. In decision tables, you remember the picture there when I talked about a trade. If somebody puts an order, where should it go? Whether it should it go to shipment, should it go to the inventory management, like that, different combination of decision management. Similarly, there's a decision table. In this one here, simple example, a printer troubleshooter. That means printer is not working properly. What is the situation now? Conditions: printer does not print. A red light
Correct.
is
Yes or
flashing.
no?
Yeah. And printer is unrecognized. These are the conditions that is happening right now. What are the actions we can do? Check the power cables. Like, there are different types of action that we can do to make sure
Yeah, for the
printer is working.
troubleshooting.
Yes. That is a decision table scenario of testing. These are different types of testing. Use case testing. This is where you take a flow of how each action is performed. You try to test it as if somebody is doing that. Okay, you go to a restaurant, you order something,
Right.
and there are some multiple actions happening there. Similarly, on website, people do multiple things. You don't just go to I'm taking example of photos.com, but you go to yahoo.com. Okay, and these days they have put a lot of good news there. In yahoo.com, you have a bunch of news there, interesting ones. You read one by one, or you go to your mail, or do a search there, or something like that. So there are different actions performed by different individuals. We want to capture that. That is use case testing. But if you are working in a company like a finance company or insurance company, let's take insurance company. What does insurance company customers do? They try to buy insurance or renew a policy or claim some insurance. So there are different types of actions that they will do. They won't do
Right.
all at the same time. They will do one action on a particular instance. Okay, that is use case testing. In white box testing, only developer will test the code through units, and we won't do a white box testing. So we don't even go there. Somebody in interview might ask you, did you do white box testing? You can say, no, I didn't, never did white box testing. I did black box. That's all. Okay. What is gray box testing? In gray box testing, you still do black box testing, but but you need to find data. Where do you get data? The data is in a database. How do you get the data from database? You have to run some SQL queries. When you write it, that means you have some knowledge of coding, SQL coding. That will make you a semi-developer. You are not 100% developer, but you know how to write SQL and get the data and make sure you test the requirements. That is gray box testing. Now let me ask you some questions here. Okay, in different levels of testing, we talk about unit testing, integration, system testing, user acceptance, which pre-production or production testing, which we discussed this many times, right? Now if you go to interview, you can answer any of these testing definitions straight away. Who does pre-production or production testing? Can you guess?
Reproduction, right?
Yeah. In pre-production means the code didn't go to production yet. Who's going to do pre-production testing?
Production manager or production analyst?
There won't be a production analyst.
No.
There won't be a production manager too. So most likely pre-production, still system tester might be doing it, business tester might be doing it. So there will be a pre-production environment. Just like production server, you will have a pre-production server. You will just put it on pre-production just to check, make sure everything is good or not before sending it out, making live to everybody. Okay, that is pre-production. In pre-production, anybody can test it. Now in production testing, who is going to do it? There won't be production manager. There is no production tester. You will have production support team.
Okay.
They will do the testing. And those are analysts. So those are not testers, but they are analysts. Analysts means they know in and out of the business. They know how their production, how the data, in real time, how it's going to come. If you go to production tables or database or anything, you will see real information. That means if you put your address or anything like that, anybody can see it. So that's why they don't give access to the database and the tables to everybody. Only few people who is on production support team. So they can only test it. Nobody else will be allowed. Okay. Now different time of testing. There are two different times of testing, alpha and beta. One is before internally we do testing, that is alpha. Beta, we will use external users or some internal users. Just before release, it's called beta testing. So in beta testing, what type of testing come into picture? You will have user acceptance testing in beta. You will have pre-production testing there. You will have performance testing there. You will have production testing also there. Within beta, you will have so many. So each one is like a different dimension. Different approaches, white box, black box, gray box, which we covered. Method of execution. How do you execute? Either manual or automated. That means you record everything and keep playing every day again and again. So automated way of teaching, what is my way? I'm recording all these training videos. I'll put it on my portal and let people go through the video content and read it. That is automated way. I'm not teaching again and again. Manual is something I'm recording, I'm training you and recording right now. That is manual. Manually I'm doing it now. I'm just giving you some realistic examples so that it will stick in your brain.
Right.
Testing after changes. You find some issue or requirement that needs to be corrected. So that means there is a defect there. A requirement or a design can be anything. That is defects validation. So you found a defect, you raise a defect in quality center, you assign it to the developer. He will fix the code. He will move the code back into QA environment in the QA server which I have shown you in the picture. Then they will ask you to, you will assign back to you. That when it's assigned back to you, that means it's on your code now. That means you have to test it. You have to test it, and if it works fine, then close it. Close the defect. While we discuss about defect lifecycle in the next class, I will go through that content. Smoke testing and sanity, which we talked, these are very important. In smoke and sanity, when do they occur? Now code is already gone to production, but we added some features now, new features. But we want to make sure everything is good, rest of everything. The new content should work as supposed to be, and also we want to make sure the previous one. That is, you don't have time. Then you pick only the important ones that you need to test. That is smoke testing. Wherever you think it will fail, those ones only you will test. Like if you know the login functionality will fail, you test only login. Or if you know that if you are unable to attach a file in an email, you will test only that content, like that. Sanity, you don't test wherever it's failing. You test everything that is really important for the business. Sanity is making sure your code is clean. Risk based is sometimes we use it. Generally, you will have, what will happen in real project is you will have 4 or 5 months of project. Okay, rest of the teams will consume 4 months of 5 months. You will left over with 1 month. In 1 month, you have to write test case. You have to test everything. Make sure all the defects are fixed. Then retest again. Like that, how many times you gonna do? You don't know. And there will be again user acceptance test there. You will have performance testing done. Then finally production. So you won't have time when you do multiple times. That's when you use risk-based testing. You pick the ones. In quality center, you have an option to say this is high priority or not. So you will pick the ones which are only high priority, test only the high priority ones if you don't have time. If you still have time, you go to the next high priority ones. Now priority number 1 you test first, priority number 2 later, priority number 3 later, like that. That is risk-based testing. Regression, if you keep updating your website again with new content there, rest everything should keep on working and for any number of releases. So regression is redoing again and again and again. How many times? We don't know. So in regression, you will have automated test cases. You don't want to spend money every time to ask a tester to do everything again. So you write it, record everything, run them. That will save you money, save the company money. Now, goal of testing, there is functional and there is non-functional. Let's see what are in functional. We have installation, data integrity, security, business cycle. Each one is a specific function. You're checking the security of an application. Okay, you technical details, if you in your laptop or in a machine, you install antivirus, firewall, like that. That is security. How do you think those products came into picture? Somebody might have tested it, made sure that it's blocking all the viruses. So that is security testing. Now if you buy Windows 8, you have to install it on your machine to move on to new operating system. That is installation testing. You will be provided all the hardware and software in the office if you are doing something like this. Business cycle testing. So this is where only you test in terms of business. You have only business requirements, nothing else. You might have some other content, but you want to focus only on the business. The business cycle means insurance company, health insurance company. Okay, every year October or some around that time, each company will put a enrollment, health insurance enrollment, that period for 1 month. That is a cycle. So every year it happens the same period. Why do they do that? For the next year, you have to select your health insurance plan by October. And that is a cycle. So in that cycle, whatever action that happen will be covered there. Non-functional, UI, and you also have performance testing. You're testing your application, like how the performance is there. Okay, load testing. So I'm just giving a recap of all the content here. Just read through the content. And in all this case, you can have positive and negative scenarios. Positive is the ones which it will pass. Negative are the ones which it will fail. So you want to make sure it fails or not. So for a negative scenario, if it falls, if for a negative scenario, if it passes, is it a bug or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So if a negative scenario passes, then it's a defect. So that part we have covered till yesterday's class. Go through the documentation again, it will help you. Today's class, now can I mute you now? I'm getting a lot of disturbance.
Okay.
Okay. Or you can mute on your side and you can stop me if you have any question, okay?
Okay.
So week 3, for 2 days, like in the weekend batch I use these slides. So for 2 days, like approximately 6 hours to 7 hours, I cover this entire content. And I'll try to go as slowly as possible, and this is where we step into testing, more into testing now, and we'll and stop me if you have any questions anywhere. Before we start, do you want to take like a quick 5-minute break, then come back again and continue? Five-minute break, okay? Okay, let's come back at 9 o'clock sharp, okay? Then we'll continue with the content. Okay, thank you, Hiral. So today's class, and for another few days, maybe I'm guessing today's Wednesday, right? Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we can cover this content that will cover 3 weeks of class, and this is the critical one where we go into testing more. And whatever this is, again, some part this is theoretical, and then we'll go into practical knowledge where I'll give you homework and let you do some test planning and writing test cases also. So first up, these are the topics that will be covered. We'll cover what is a software test life cycle, what are the different phases in that cycle. Then again, we'll look at different other phases in the regular software design, software development life cycle model, the requirements analysis, test planning, test case development. And within test lifecycle, we have other content. We have requirements analysis, we have test planning, we'll look at test case development, we'll look at test environment setup, and what these terminology mean. Because you need to start using this terminology. You need to talk as a tester. When you even converse with me, when you talk with me, if you do that, that will help you think in the direction that as if you are really a tester. Okay, and we will look at different types of defects, how we're going to fix it, and how we're going to close the test cases once we are done, and entry and exit criteria for each individual cycle, sample test plan and its contents. And we'll also look at a test plan. We'll prepare a test plan in the class by the end of maybe, if possible, we'll do it on Friday. Otherwise, we'll continue with the next week. I hope you are only looking for the weekday class at this point, so we can start on Monday writing a test plan. Then I'll give you an homework on Monday or Tuesday, like that. Then we can also look at defect life cycle. Once we are done with this, we'll move into the actual practical part where we'll write our test case on an Excel, and we can go from there. Okay. So theoretically, these are the terminology which you need to learn. Now, software testing life cycle. How is it different from software development life cycle? It's within it. So you have 5 different phases, right? And testing starts at a certain stage. So wherever the point where testing starts, from there software testing life cycle starts. Each one has a life cycle. Okay, let's say you believe to certain years, number of years, and you will have pets along the way. Each pet, cat lives for 10 years or something like that. So that has its own life cycle, and think about that. And you might have another pet, it will have certain life. So it's like different, coming together. So similarly, in an entire project, you will have a software development life cycle. In it, wherever testing starts, that's the point where the software test life cycle will start. What does it do? It defines the different steps or stages in testing the software. In RAD model, or rational unified process, there is a different type of model which I didn't discuss here. In that, the terminology is different. The reason I didn't discuss is this is IBM has created a new model which has different wording but means the same. Inceptions means planning, elaboration means analysis and design, construction means implementation, transition means maintenance, and production and maintenance. Now in this case, if you look at these phases here, I took this example because if you are working in a big project where IBM products are used a lot, then they will use this type of model. And the model is RUP. It's called as RUP. R-U-P. Rational Unified Process. Remember this. Nobody might not ask you a question on this one in an interview, but it's interesting to know different types of processes and how you get involved as a tester in each one of them. Okay, now in these different phases, this is just like planning. Elaboration is just like analysis and design. Construction is just like implementation. Transition is just like maintenance. Production and maintenance. Our testing, if you look at in the test here, it's starting here at the analysis phase, analysis and design phase. So in planning, you're deciding what kind of project we need to do, how we need to do, funding and all that information. At that stage, you don't need to test anything, right? All we are creating is a plan on how to do things. Once you have that information, business analysts, when they put the requirements in business requirement document, that's when testing starts. You will start reviewing the documents from here. Slowly it's going to go higher and higher. You will go through multiple requirement documents, read, understand how to test it, each scenario and everything. Slowly it will, when you go into implementation stage, it is peaking. It's going to go higher and higher. That's where you do most of the testing for a long time. Then again, once you're done with testing, it's going to go down before it goes into production. So your test life cycle is from here till here, entire. In this case, wherever you start is your test planning and requirements analysis will start here. There are three different phases within software test life cycle: test planning, test analysis and design, and test execution. Test planning, you're looking at how many people you need and all that content will be like this. Then once you plan everything, now analysis and design will keep on going till here until you have all the documents ready. Then now you created documents, you created test cases, you need to test it. Once the coding is done, you start testing. This is test execution. Then again, what about this one? If there are any defects, you will fix them, test it, retest, and done. Closure. This is another example of how a testing life cycle happens. First, requirements are identified. Now, the moment requirements are identified, a tester will read through the content, understand, digest what is the actual scope of the project. What are we testing? Acceptance. So we look at the acceptance criteria. Means what is acceptable? What should I test? Should I check for hotels? Should I check for airlines on hotels.com? Like that. Strategy and design. What is the design? How am I going to lay out all the content? Next, test planning. You write test plan. Then you execute. Test cases are you manually do step by step in the test case. Then defects will be found. You fix them, test it. Then finally review and audit. You remember yesterday I talked about quality control, where we do audits and make sure you find defects, how many defects were found, because of finding the defects, how much money the company has saved. Everything will go into the audit. That is quality control. And once we are done with that, then finally we'll give it to the customer to check if we have the final product or not. So this is testing life cycle. I thought I forgot to record. Good. Um, so let's go through each phase again. The first phase is requirements capture and analysis. You have the requirement documents. You're reading the requirements now in the first phase. Then you write a test plan. Now there will be a template given to you by each, wherever you work, they will have templates. You don't need to create from the scratch. Template means you will be given a document in that some of the, it's like if you have a, if you go to an exam, okay, in some exams what they do, they will give you questions and they will give you space to write answers. In that they have filled some content with the question and answers you will have space. Exactly like that, a template, you will have all the content in it, and in the answers, for each content whatever you need to add based on the project you will update it, but remaining content will be standard, like what we'll be testing, what are you going to do. Like if you get a document, I will review in this scenario, I'll present it to stakeholders, I'll get a sign off. These are all the standard content for every project. For every project we'll follow the same steps. Do we need to write every time? No. That's where template comes into picture. And this is where you write test plan document. After that you write test cases. Now we'll talk about what is a test case, how you develop a test case, and anything, developing a test case and writing everything is called test designing. In some, there will be some jobs called test designer. What they do, they only write test cases with all possible combinations of a particular project. You only write test cases. Those people won't execute. They are very good at understanding the business and writing the test cases. Okay. And there's another one, the next phase is environment setup. You have to test somewhere. Your QA environment, QA server, means like your QA folder, wherever you have all your QA files, you want to test there. When you do the testing, that means your environment should be ready there. As I told you, dev is like one computer, QA is another computer, UAT is another computer, performance is another computer, finally production is another computer. So from one computer, you're moving the code. You're testing in this computer, then moving the code in another computer, test there. Is it working in this computer or not? You're testing. Then you move it to another computer, test there. Like that. So when it moves into QA server is nothing but similar to a computer. When the code is coming into QA server, you're going to test it. So that, is your system on? Do you have the right files on your server? All that information is done in test environment setup. Once everything is ready, what is the next step? Test it. That is test execution. Once you are done with all the execution of all the test cases, you say test cycle closure. You will give a sign off saying that I have tested so and so test cases, I found so and so defects. These are the ones which are pending, these are the ones which are closed. All this information will be provided at the end of the cycle. This is how it will be if you don't have a software test lifecycle. Okay, so a project is something like this. There are multiple questions you can see here. Users, what do they want? What they need? You come up with the initial plan. Then when you come up with plan, what could go wrong? Okay, and these are the simple statements that will be on everybody's mind when they start a project. Now, how do we fix this? That's where testing comes into picture. Now, when they put everything together, people will be thinking like this: will it work? Unit testing has to be done or not? Do we have a software? What kind of testing do we need to do? Do we need to do positive testing, negative testing? How could it break? Now, these are different questions. Once you have the test life cycle defined, once testing gets into picture, you will define the test life cycle into these phases. Each one goes in order, one by one. Okay. Now let's go to different types of phases within the software test lifecycle and definition. Requirement analysis is the very first step in software testing lifecycle. In this step, quality assurance team understands the requirement in terms of what we will be testing and figure out the testable requirements. Plain English, if any conflict, missing, or not understood any requirements, then QA team will follow up with the various stakeholders like business analyst, system architecture, client is nothing but end user or customer, technical manager, lead, to better understand the detailed knowledge of the requirement. Okay, whatever you don't understand, what do? You try to reach out to those concerned team and get that information. If you don't understand in a model, then you go to a data modeler or a application modeler or a system modeler. If you don't understand a architecture related document, then you go to a system architect. Okay, so from the very first step, QA is involved in where the STLC, which helps to prevent the introducing defects into software under test. So we are avoiding the defects. In order to do that, we need to read the documentation, start getting involved upfront. That all comes under requirement analysis. In requirement capture analysis, what is the starting point? What do we need? What is the outcome? Everything is, there is an input and there is an output. What is your input for requirements capture analysis? A requirements document, any architectural document, all that, any important critical documents. What do we do in requirement capture analysis? Prepare the list of questions and queries, and that means as a tester you do these things. You write questions, talk to your team, get the information. Then make a list, create all different types of tests. Define the testing focus and priorities. List down the test environment details where testing activities can be carried out. Check out the automation feasibility if required and prepare the automation feasibility report. You do all these activities. Then what are your deliverables? List of questions with all the answers to be resolved from business. That is testable requirements. So once you ask the questions, you get response back. Based on the response, you figure out what can be tested, what cannot be tested. Okay, if you want to test a web page not being available on the website, that means wantedly the developer should take away that web page from the site, which can't happen because once you put it, and in order to test that, you need to ask him to do that for you. Otherwise, you can't test it. If you remove the file from the server, and you can't access the web page. So if we go to our portal, okay, QA training for job, and there are multiple links here, multiple pages here. If I take down one program, like I want to take down one here program here. Let's say I want to take down one particular curriculum from the portal. Then I try to test it to see if there is a link there, and when I click the link, what will happen? Nothing will show up there. It will show an error saying that you don't have anything here. That is, those are the testable or non-testable requirements that will come into picture there. That is only testable if you get information from the developer. That is the analysis you will be doing. Test planning. What is test planning? In test planning, you are trying to plan everything. You have the document with you, a template. Now I want to see what should I test. How do I go? How many people I need? How much money I need? How much time I need? All that you are capturing. You put it in a test plan. So in simpler fashion, this phase is also called as test strategy phase. In this phase, typically test manager or test lead based on company to company involved to determine the effort and cost estimates for the entire project. This phase will be kicked off once the requirement gathering phase is completed, and based on the requirement analysis, start preparing the test plan. The result of test planning phase will be test plan or test strategy or testing and testing effort estimation documents. Once test planning phase is completed, the QA team can start with test cases development activity. Look at the picture here. What is the entry criteria here? Requirements documents again, and anything, all the requirement, business system can be anything. Activities. There are a bunch of activities that we do. We create a test plan. What do we create in the test plan? Define the objective scope of the project. We list down the different types of testing you're going to do. I will be doing beta, I'll be doing alpha, I'll be doing system, I'll be doing integration, performance, like that. You determine what type of testing you'll do in the test plan. You're putting a plan there. Test effort estimation. How much time do I need to test it? That estimates you will give. So you think it might take 2 weeks, it might take 1 month, like that you give the number of the period that is needed for testing. Then what type of testing tool should I use? Should I use Quality Center, existing one which is standard for our company? I'll use it. You will put that information there. Define the testing process overview. So where do we start? When you say testing process, you define, okay, from the point of you get the requirements. Once you break down the requirements, your manager will, your lead will review, then your manager will review, then it's given out to all other teams. So everything will come into picture. In the testing process, these things have to happen. You define it. And test environment. Is it ready? What do we need to add there? All that information will also be added. So like that, we'll have test schedules, control procedures. When we look at test plan document, you will see the content there. But here, I have put some activities here. Determining roles and responsibilities, like who will be the lead, who will be the tester, who will work on Cbool, who will work on database, like that you have to define. Once you're done with it, what will be the output of a test planning phase? A test plan document or a test strategy document, and another deliverable, testing effort estimation document. That means there will be an Excel spreadsheet which tells you how much time does it take to complete with how many people. You need to calculate people also, not only time. So if for 5 hours, I mean, if you estimate that your testing thing is like 5 hours, and if 5 people start working on it, everyone can finish it in 1 hour. That means in 1 hour you can complete the testing if you have 5 people. That estimates will be put into that testing effort estimation document. Okay. So this is what we'll do, Hiral. We will stop it for now. This is the right time to stop it here. I don't want to cover all other phases of test life cycle. Otherwise, it will confuse you. For tomorrow's class, prepare whatever we have covered so far. Then I will ask you questions till test planning again, just to make sure you are in the right path. Okay. And I will, once the video is converted, I'll upload today's video, and I'll try to record the other video. The other video I'll have to do it on the weekend only, and I am not getting enough time to do. So today's video I'll upload in another couple of hours. You should be able to see the video. Please don't share any documents or videos to anybody, because it's proprietary and I'm only getting paid based on the people who are getting their payment only. That's how I'm trying to share. I don't want to open it to public. I hope you understand. So we'll end.
Right. Actually, I was trying to open that like link through that my email, and then I couldn't that share folder couldn't open, so that's why I tried to use the other user ID, and that was my email in Pink Moon 2.
Okay, no problem. So we'll end the day here, and then we'll continue with the next different phases of test planning. I mean software test lifecycle tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.